Well, hello there and welcome to a very different sort of a video. So, as you may know, I am a huge fan of the Zelda series. Now, as it stands, we are less than a week away from the release of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and I could not be more excited. I already have decided, I get the game, I'm just gonna disappear to my basement and play it. Now, I will say, I'm not actually going to stream the game on Twitch, just because I'd rather just sit and enjoy the game on my own. Maybe I'll do a second playthrough sometime streaming it on Twitch. I'm not sure yet. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're not here to talk about Tears of the Kingdom. I saw that Beatemups did a video doing a tier list of all the Zelda games. And I thought that was a good idea, so I'm going to do the same thing. Credit for this idea, of course, goes to Beatemups, who's where I got the inspiration from. I know other people have done it. So I will say, this is only going to be the single-player Zelda, since I haven't actually played any of the multiplayer ones. And I'm not going to include any of the spin-offs. Like, I'm not going to include, like, Link's Crossbow Training, the CDI games, or the Warriors games, because I don't consider them as mainline Zelda games. Now, I expect that your opinions on what I'm going to be doing here is going to be very different than mine, and that's okay, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are about my ranking down in the comments. I will actually preface this by saying, I did not grow up playing any of these games. I did not actually play any of these games at launch. Tears of the Kingdom is going to be the first Zelda game that I'm playing at launch. I mean, Breath of the Wild, it was 2 years later when I played it. So my opinions of these games are not going to be distorted by nostalgia. So, anyway, here we go. So, The Legend of Zelda. This was actually the first Zelda game I played. I remember it was late high school, I think, that I wanted to start building an NES collection, and I asked for and got The Legend of Zelda for Christmas. Actually, it's interesting, I got the Grey Cart version, which is, from what I understand, a little bit more rare since it was a re-release that Nintendo did. So, I played through it, and I have a very distinct memory of sitting in my basement playing The Legend of Zelda, doing one of the earlier dungeons and just dying repeatedly, and I remember my dad and brother coming down and laughing at me, but I didn't care. I was having a blast. But my problem with the game, it has aged extremely poorly. The controls are not great. Your sword, actually, it's probably my biggest problem with the game is the sword. Besides just having a very short reach, it just shoots right out in front of you, whereas most of the other 2D Zeldas, if not all of them, your sword like sweeps in front of you, so it's a little easier to hit enemies. You don't have to be as direct. And the puzzles in the game are, well, not very puzzly. I mean, most of the puzzle is trying to figure out where to go and what to do, especially if you make it all the way to the second quest. Whether you may or may not know that once you beat Zelda 1 the first time, there's actually a second quest, and it's a lot harder because the dungeons are completely different, and the problem with them is they have a lot of walls that you have to blow up, and there's no indication that you can. And that's the problem throughout the entire game, that any walls that you can blow up, there's no way to tell, whether by sound or look, that you can blow it up. And that really is the biggest problem with it. Now, this game would be good. I would think it would still be great if Nintendo would do a remake of it. I think that would be awesome. But, considering it laid the foundation for the entire series, I have to say, I have to probably give it a B. If it weren't for the fact that it started everything, it would probably be a C or D, just based on the complexity of trying to navigate the world and the controls and the sword being just terrible. Alright, so Zelda 2. So coincidentally, this was actually the second Zelda I ever played. Now, I know a lot of people don't like it because it's so very different between the XP system and the side-scrolling dungeons and the random enemy encounters. I know a lot of people do not like Zelda 2. But for what it is, I really like it. I understand what they were going for. They were experimenting. I mean, there wasn't really a Zelda formula yet because it was only the second game. Now, am I happy that they went? Am I happy that Nintendo went more in the direction of what Zelda 1 did compared to Zelda 2? Absolutely. I mean, I think the series would not be nearly as successful if they had followed the formula laid out by Zelda 2. But the dungeons are fun. The music is really good. Now, granted, the dungeons aren't very varied, like the theming is terrible, but that was the same as in Zelda 1. The dungeons were basically all look alike. The overworld, though, is where I really don't like it. The overworld is too sprawling, too complex to navigate, and basically you're blocked off until you get certain items to prevent you from exploring further. Whereas like in Zelda 1, I'm pretty sure, if I recall, you could explore the entire map right off the bat. You don't have to get any special items to explore. Well, that's not true. There's one dungeon and one other island you need the raft to get to, but basically besides that, you can go anywhere right away in Zelda 1, and most of the games are like that you can go and explore. The fact that the world is blocked off in Zelda 2 really bothers me. So I'm going to actually say, probably just based on the overworld and how much I don't like it, I'm going to put it in C tier. It's not bad by any means, but it is really not a great game. Alright, moving on to The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. So this game is just fantastic. I'm going to say right off the bat, I absolutely love A Link to the Past. I'm going to say, looking through these, this is absolutely my... Well, actually, no. I'm going to say, looking through these, this is my second favorite... second favorite 2D Zelda. It's not a bad game, by any means. It's not bad. I've played through this game a few times, and I still think it's really hard. But that's actually part of the appeal of it for me, is that it is a hard game. It keeps you on your toes. You're not going to just like sit back and relax, like playing something like Super Mario Brothers. I just lay back on the couch. I don't really care. This, you gotta stay sharp, and I love it. You have the introduction to so many unique ideas in the series, and actually probably one of the things that I like the most about this game is an item introduced, the hook shot. Because that's just one of my favorite items, or any variation on it is just so much fun in any Zelda game. Specifically like in Skyward Sword when you have the double claw shot. I love it. So I'm gonna... Now, I would say this is an S tier, except the brutal difficulty. Again, even after playing it a few times, I think it's ridiculously hard. So I'm gonna put it in A, just because it's not as relaxing as I would like. But, I do like that you have to be alert when you're playing it. Next up, The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. So I've only played the DX and Switch versions. I've never played the original Game Boy version. I love this game so much. The world is just, it's such a nice world, and it honestly one of the most emotional stories in the entire series for me. Just, the idea that, Link goes and meets these people and becomes part of this island, and that his decision to leave causes the island and all its inhabitants to disappear. I love it. The dungeons are really good. The only really slight issue with it is a small overworld, but considering it's an island, I don't really think that's actually a huge deal. This game, it really built on what A Link to the Past laid down, as it was actually originally meant as a port of Link to the Past to the Game Boy. But it really built on it, and I think this is such an important game in the series. I will actually put this in A tier with A Link to the Past. Alright, now this is probably going to be one of the more controversial decisions I make in doing this tier list. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. So, I know a lot of people love this game, say it's one of the greatest games of all time, and yes, I agree, it is a really good game, and I can't ignore its historical impact and how it helped shape gaming as a whole, because it was completely revolutionary for the time. I'm aware of that. However, I'm not a huge fan of the game. Yes, some of the dungeons are good, like the Shadow Temple I love is a great dungeon, but the world just feels very empty and dead. Like Hyrule Field. Yeah, it's cool, you gotta go out and explore this big open field, but that's all it is. It's a big open field. There's not really much to do in Hyrule Field itself. Castletown. Kinda boring, kinda small. I'm not really that interested in exploring it whenever I get there. None of the NPCs are really interesting or memorable. And I hate to say it, but it's really not as good as everybody says it is. I will say it is still good. I do like some of the dungeons and the overall theming and the impact it had on the series and gaming in general. And because of that, I will put it in B with the original Legend of Zelda. But if it weren't for just how revolutionary it was for the time, it would probably be a C tier game for me just because of how dead the world feels. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I love Majora's Mask so much. Mainly because the world just feels so much more alive and vibrant than compared to Hyrule in Ocarina of Time. Yes, it reuses all the same NPCs, all the same assets and characters and everything, but the world, it's partly because it's smaller, but also just the entire 3-day cycle about the game that you learn about the routines of these people, and they have detailed routines. They do different things at different times of the day. They're not just standing around, spinning in a circle or whatever for the entire game. And you really start to learn about these people, and you start to care about them. And the dungeons, yes, the dungeons are good, but it's more just the world building and like the side quests, like just the side quests and everything. They're so good. I will probably actually put this one as an S tier game. It's honestly one of my favorite games of all time. It is almost, I would say it's almost my favorite Zelda. I'm sure you can probably guess what my favorite one is. We'll get to that later, but it's just such a good game. I love everything about it. Alright, so Oracle of Ages and Seasons. I'm going to be grouping these together because, that's how they came out, but also that's just how they stick in my mind. Neither game really distinguishes itself in my mind. They're not great. If I had to pick one as my favorite, of those two, I'd probably pick Oracle of Seasons. It's just, I don't know why, I felt much more like exploring the world and, finding all the secrets compared to Oracle of Ages. When I played through Oracle of Ages, I didn't really get into the world. I didn't feel like going and exploring. I just kind of just went through the main quest, and that was it. I preferred Oracle of Seasons, especially with Subrosia, or Subrosia, however you pronounce it. Oracle of Ages just having the past and present was kind of eh. So I'm actually going to put Oracle of Ages as a C tier because of that. Seasons I'm actually going to put as a B because of it having Subrosia, or however you pronounce it. Again, I don't know how you pronounce it, which makes it a little more interesting and more to explore, more to find. Alright, moving on to the third 3D Zelda game. Yes, third, yeah. The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. So now, I have not played the HD version, I'm going to say that right away. I don't have a Wii U, and Nintendo, for some reason, won't release it on Switch, even though I am part of the group that is of the opinion that the game is actually finished and ready to release on Switch. I don't know why Nintendo won't release it. So, The Wind Waker, GameCube version. I think it's a really good game, but it doesn't really distinguish itself too much outside of the graphics and the humor and the facial expressions and everything. The dungeons, yeah, they're alright, but they're nothing that great. The music is, of course, really good, especially like Dragon Roost Island and just like the Great Sea with how music makes you want to feel like you're going on an adventure. But the world is just same as Ocarina of Time. It feels very empty. The Great Sea, yeah, there's islands here or there, but outside of Windfall and Outset, there's not really much to do on any of the islands, and that's what kind of kills it for me. I don't care about the long Triforce fetch quest at the end. I don't think that's really a problem. I've never cared really about that. I know a lot of people hate it. But for me, it's just how empty the world feels. And seeing as it doesn't really have the same impact on gaming as a whole compared to Ocarina of Time, and again, I don't have any real nostalgia for it, I'm actually going to put this as a C tier. It's too empty. It's not as good as people say it is. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion, but that's what I feel. Alright, moving on to the next 2D game, The Legend of Zelda The Minish Cap. I love The Minish Cap. It's so much fun. It is my second favorite 2D game behind the... actually, Actually, you know what? No, it's probably my favorite 2D Zelda game over A Link to the Past. The world, yes, it's kind of small, but it's so colorful. It's so cheerful. I love it. I love the idea of being able to shrink down to the size of the Minish and explore the world and see this giant world around you, like you'll be going past a gigantic acorn. It's so cool. The dungeons are alright. Again, nothing really stands out to me except like I don't remember what it's called. The one in the cloud tops. I don't remember what it's called. That dungeon is really cool. I love that. It's a really cool story, and you know, it's one of the earlier stories in the game. I just wish that they'd built on a few things other from it. I mean, yes, there was the Four Sword, and this told the story, you know, the formation of the Four Sword. Again, I'm not talking about the Four Swords games because I've never played them. So yeah, you know, we know some about the Four Sword and Vati from those games, but like the Minish, I don't think have ever been mentioned in any other games since Minish Cap, or before it even. I know they were actually originally planned to be in Breath of the Wild, but you know, that's something I would like to see built on. Or actually, I would really like a prequel to the game where they explain in this game, Vati's looking for not the Triforce but the Light Force. I would love it if Nintendo or Capcom, since they originally developed Minish Cap, I would love it if they actually like did a prequel to the game explaining what the Light Force is and how it differs from the Triforce, since I assume it's a different thing and it's not just the same name for two, or you know, it's not just different names for the same thing. But I'm getting sidetracked. I love this game. I am going to put this as an S tier. Wonderful game. It's great. Alright, moving on to the other GameCube Zelda, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. So now, I've only played the GameCube version of this, and as much as a lot of people will probably complain, this is not a Wii game. This is a GameCube game. It was a GameCube game that was ported to the Wii. Even though it came out first, it was originally developed for the GameCube. I also have not played the HD version of this, again, because I don't own a Wii U. So, I like the game, but it suffers from the same issue as Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, of like a lot of the overworld feeling very empty and barren. Hyrule Field is way bigger than in Ocarina of Time, but again, it's very empty. There's not much to do around the world. There's no like, you know, there's not many settlements. You know, you got Kakariko Village, you got Orden Village, you got Castletown, but other than that, there's not really many settlements, you know, that you can easily get to from Hyrule Field. Like, if there was, like, a small town over here and a small town here on your way to Castletown or Kakariko Village, that would be cool, but there's not. It's a very empty game. Now, the story is fantastic. The dungeons are some of the best in the series. The Arbiter's Grounds, I absolutely love. Skykeep, I think it's called. No, that's a that's a Skyward Sword one. Again, the one in the sky, so much fun. Actually, the Lakebed Temple, with controlling the water, using the stairs to change where the water flows throughout the dungeon. They've got some of the best dungeons in the game. The music is great. The combat system just feels so satisfying. Midna, of course. You can't ignore Midna being one of the most unique and interesting partners, actually the most interesting partner in the series. So I love it. I will put it as an A tier because the dungeons and music I think are better than Ocarina of Time. And again, the combat and also your partner, Midna's way better than Navi. So I will put this as an A over Ocarina of Time. I know, oof, weird decision, I know. Alright, moving on. So the first of the DS Zeldas, Phantom Hourglass. I don't dislike this game, but some aspects of it aren't great. I'm not a fan of the ocean that you're exploring in this game. So again, if you don't know, this one is a direct sequel to the Wind Waker, so they stuck with the exploring the open sea aspect of it. I'm not a fan of the world. There's almost less to do than in the Wind Waker. The one upside of it is it's a much smaller world, so you have a lot less traveling to do where you're doing nothing. The controls, I know some people love them, some people hate them. I'm of the opinion that it was a good idea with the controls, what they were doing, entirely touch controlled, but it needed to be refined. I have some issues with controlling Link sometimes. It's not great. And of course, I can't ignore the Temple of the Ocean King being one of the stupidest dungeons ever and having to go back to it over and over and over. It's a good game, but I'm not a huge fan. I'm going to actually be putting this in C tier. Now, moving on to the direct sequel to that game, Spirit Tracks. I love it. I love Spirit Tracks, but it suffers from some of the same limitations. In fact, it's actually more limited, where you're stuck to traveling on tracks instead of being able to draw your own path to where you want to go. You have to follow the rail line between the different towns and dungeons and stuff. The controls, I feel like were improved just enough in this that it's a little less frustrating sometimes. I don't know if that's just my imagination, but that's how I feel, that the controls were a little bit improved. And I like the inclusion of using Zelda, like Zelda's spirit, to control the suits of armor, and I think that's great, and I love that Zelda actually plays a big role in this game. And I will say that Spirit Tracks' Zelda is my favorite iteration of the character. She's so funny, and you get to actually know her, which is something that you don't really get to do in any of the other games, for the most part, other than the next one, Skyward Sword. I don't... You know, I was going to put this in B, but it's not really different enough from Phantom Hourglass for me to rank it much higher than it. It's still a good game. I'm going to say, you know, the reason these are on C and not in D or F is they're all still good games. But, yeah, it's not different enough from Phantom Hourglass for me to be able to rank it higher. The controls, while a little better, are still not great. And the overworld is just so limited. Also, graphically, I haven't really been paying too much attention to the graphics for most of these games, but, like, these two don't look good. They should not have stuck with trying to do 3D Toon Link. They should have done some completely different art style for these. I can understand for Phantom Hourglass, since that is the same Link from the Wind Waker, so I can understand for that one wanting to keep them looking the same. But they should have changed the art style for Spirit Tracks then, because it did not work well. So that's unfortunately where I'm going to have to put those. Alright, so now moving on to The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. So this game, I did play both the Wii and Switch versions. Actually, I have reviewed the Switch version and compared it to the Wii version on this channel. I'll leave a link to that in the description. I know a lot of people have some conflicting feelings about this game, but I think it's actually really good from the perspective of the story just being one of the most intricate and emotional in the series. You know, learning about how Link and Zelda were childhood friends, and he has to go on his big adventure to save her, and just how it's, you know, it's the start of the entire timeline, the birth of Hyrule, and you know, the beginning of the curse that, you know, makes there be Link and Zelda and Ganon over and over and over. It's so good. It's a beautiful game, especially on the Switch. The dungeons are great. The music is great. Honestly, I love it. Most people would probably disagree with me here. Well, you know what? I was gonna put it in S, but I'm gonna put it in A tier. Because the controls. So, I didn't have a huge problem on the Wii with the controls. In fact, I actually kind of like the controls on the Wii. But on the Switch, I don't like controlling it with the I don't like controlling it with the thumbstick sword controls. It's awkward. I don't like it. The Joy-Cons, yes, you know, it's the same idea as the Wii. But I can't get the Joy-Cons to stay calibrated and stay centered. Like, I can, you know, I'll center a Joy-Con and, you know, I'll be resting my hand on the couch so it doesn't move, and the pointer will start drifting. It's so annoying. That's what's keeping me from ranking it higher. I don't care about 5 being annoying. I don't care about the linearity. It's the controls that keeps me from making that an S tier game. Now, so second to last, The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. I like this game because of the rental aspect. I know some people aren't huge fans of it from what I've heard, but I love the idea of renting the items so that you can go and explore the dungeons pretty much in whatever order you want. It was the start of Nintendo trying to make the games more open world, and I love what they did. It's obviously not my favorite game, mainly because the world being the exact same as A Link to the Past. If I had grown up playing A Link to the Past, maybe I'd feel better about A Link Between Worlds, you know, the nostalgia of revisiting that version of Hyrule. But it's still good, and Lorule is, you know, it's a cool world. I like that it's broken up so that you have to figure out where to enter it in the light world to be able to get to where you want. It is good. The dungeons, I feel, are a bit short and a bit lacking in substance in some cases, probably partially because of being able to rent the items, so it's, you have everything you need right off the bat. So I will put this as an A tier because it is good, and trying to make the game more open world was great. But yeah, it's just dungeons not feeling super good, and the world being reused from A Link to the Past, again, keeping it from being an S tier. Now, before I talk about it, of course, Breath of the Wild is an S tier. It is hands down my favorite game of all time, although I have a feeling that's going to change later this week when Tears of the Kingdom comes out. But just what Nintendo did with Breath of the Wild, making this gigantic open world for you to explore, and people are still finding secrets and things about the game, years later. The story, I like what they did in, being able to keep the game open world and going in, going in basically that you have to find all Link's memories. It was a good way of making it so, yes, the story happened all this time ago, but Link doesn't remember it, and it's the same as Link's learning about the story at the same time as you are. I thought that was so well done. The combat is really satisfying. If you're bad at it, it might be frustrating, but as you progress, you find new ways of fighting enemies, and you can really do whatever you want with it, and I love it. Weapons breaking, considering how you can, just pick up any weapon and use it, pick up anything as a weapon, I think it's fine that the weapons break. Yes, it can be frustrating at times, but it's not the end of the world like some people think it is. So yeah, that actually, you know what? I'm gonna move that there. So that is the top of the top, absolutely hands down my favorite Zelda game and favorite game of all time. But again, I'm sure that is going to be changing later this week. But yeah, so I'm so excited about Tears of the Kingdom coming out. Nintendo's got a lot of high expectations for this game. I mean, it's such a highly anticipated game. They have a lot to try and live up to with the legacy of Breath of the Wild and what they were able to do with that. I've been avoiding all leaks about the game. I've not downloaded the ROM or anything. I think it's ridiculous that the game leaked early. But I've been very careful to try and avoid any leaks or spoilers. I've been successful so far. But looking at when Nintendo officially released the trailers and the gameplay session, what they're doing with this game looks amazing. And I mean, I know there's a lot of people who are like, oh, it's just DLC for Breath of the Wild, and probably they're partially saying that because it's the same world, and partially because actually Nintendo said that the game started out as DLC, and then they had so many ideas it just morphed into its own game. Seeing what they've done and just how different this is from Breath of the Wild, it's not DLC. So anybody who says it's DLC, they really need to rewatch the gameplay footage we've seen. It looks incredible. I'm so excited. So I do have ordered the collector's edition of the game, and also the Pro Controller, the carrying case, and the amiibo. I have those all ordered. I will be doing an unboxing for those Friday or Saturday, whenever everything arrives. But yeah, and then I'm going to basically just lock myself in the basement and play Zelda for a week straight. It's going to be so much fun. So again, let me know what you think about my tier list here. I guess I really didn't need the I did not want to do that. Let's delete row and delete row. I really did not need those two. Again, let me know what you think about my tier list here. Let me know how yours differs. You know, what you think I got wrong. I would love to hear your opinions. Again, this is all just my opinion. If it differs from yours, great. I would love to hear what you think. And also let me know, how excited are you for Tears of the Kingdom? I mean, again, this is the most, my personal most anticipated game ever. This is the first time since I really got into the Zelda series that a new game has come out, and that I'm going to be getting at launch. I've been following the development of the game since it was announced, and it's such a, honestly, it feels just like such a special experience, and I'm so ready for it to come out. But yeah, so if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing, and until next time, so long.